better. Marginal. Sorry, you will be hearing me do that a lot. I'm still getting over the cold from last week. It's better, much better, but still a little iffy on recovery as far as like how much longer I have. Hey, Wolf. Yeah, not too bad of a week, actually. It was pretty awesome. Surprisingly. How about you? That was upside down. Hey, Ash. No, you're good. I understand. Life happens. All right. I'm going to show you guys what I'm working on. Good. I'm glad to hear that one. This is my portrait for Wolf. Sorry, guys. My picture for Wolf. I've decided the little ghost plague doctor is just going to be all fucking purple, so let's get going on that. She mentioned that is in the last papers. Well, thank you. I'm glad you like it so far. No, none of it's going to match. It's just all purple. So how have you been, Ash? That's good. That's good. Do you guys like join the same club or something? Or get a job together? You don't have to tell if you don't want to. I'm just curious. Oh, nice. What's the game? Sorry, you guys will hear me doing that a bit, just because I'm still trying to get over the cold I had last week. It's a whole thing, and I'm sorry. That's fair. But the good thing is at least you have each other. Roblox, nice. Well, good. I'm glad he makes you happy. Definitely the most important part. I know I said this was all gonna be purple, but I lied. There's a little bit of red thrown in. Hello, Jake. See, video calls I think make long distance a little bit more bearable, because at least you can talk to the person somewhat. For me, growing up, like, Skype and all that wasn't even a thing for a long time. And so people had to rely on like phone calls and letters and stuff like that. And sometimes instant messaging once computers were more of a thing. I'm good, Jake. How are you doing? I remember using Skype for the first time when my dad was deployed to Afghanistan. Was it Afghanistan? No, it was Iraq. It was Iraq, and we had to schedule that shit. Like, that had to be scheduled in advance. We only had like 20 minutes. It was super buggy, all sorts of things. So hard to use. Oh, nice. Yeah, I had a feeling it was pretty decent in the day for Australia. My mod and best friend Wolf is from Australia, and she keeps me abreast of the time differences when I start bugging her for no reason. She's like, "Woman, it's 2 a.m. I'm going to sleep." Like, oh, I forget. What's he studying in college, if you don't mind my asking? Sydney, okay. Do technology, yes, nice. Queensland. Oh, and speaking of my dad being in the military, so Wolf, I finally watched the quote long episode of Bluey. Nice. And I'm only bringing this up because it made me think of, like, the military thing made me think of it, because the whole premise of the Bluey episode was the fact that Bluey's family was moving and they were leaving the house they loved a lot. And I was watching it like with my family, and we were all sitting there talking. We're like, this is really sad because we always had a house. Like we've had several houses that we didn't want to have to leave, and we had to. Like, it's not like with Bluey where, you know, the buyers backed out and they got the chance to stay. We never got that option. It's like if it didn't sell, oh fucking well, you still have to be wherever wherever the military told you to be by the date they told you. Sometimes my dad, for one reason or another, would have to go ahead. So he'd have to go try to get us established in the new state. It was never a new like town. It was always a new fucking state. And he always had to go ahead and get us established, and then my mom would have to wrap up everything in the previous state, and then it was always fun. But watching that episode of Bluey really reminded me of like the different houses I left behind and how sad I was to leave some of them and how happy I was to leave others. But yeah, it was a really interesting one. It was really it really made me reflect a lot on my past and my it wasn't sad per se, like not in the traditional sense, but it was more sad like, wow, I've lived a lot of places, and of all the places, I can only say like I missed like a few houses. And I think my life would have been different if I had stayed in some of those places. It's part of me wishes I could have stayed in those places just to see what would have happened to me. Just to see how different I could have been. Not to say I'm unhappy with how I am now, it just would be interesting. All those what ifs. Oh, damn, yep. I can sympathize with that. The longest place I ever lived was Wyoming, and that was 12 years. I didn't start college there, but I finished college there, and I worked my first jobs there, and yeah, had my child there, got married there, all sorts of things there. But that was the longest. Before that, it had been when we lived in Kingston. We lived there for 2 years, 2.5 years. Something closer to 3 maybe. But we lived there a long time. And then before that, the longest place we had lived was freaking Colorado. And that was when I was a kid, like little kid. Like I was an infant when I started living there. And I was 3, almost 4 when we left. I'm lucky I only moved twice in my life. Yeah. And even when I was in Wyoming, I still moved around because I moved from different houses for different reasons. And then I moved to a different city for school. So there was that. Who knows how your life would turn out if you too. Exactly, yeah. And it depends on which one place it could have been. Because I lived in I think I added it up once. I lived in 13 different places, different states. See. Oh, yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's an expected move. Like, most people do move for careers and stuff after college. Most people don't spend their entire childhood moving from place to place. That was definitely something that made me unique, although I never felt that way. Because it fucking sucked. So thinking back on it now, I can kind of appreciate it, but at the same time, it's like, could we have just like stopped? There were like 2 or 3 moves in that 13 that weren't even military related. They were just because my dad got out of the military and got different jobs somewhere else. So it's like, it was a lose-lose. I kept moving no matter what. I was destined to move. I was not destined to remain in one place. I want that to be different now. I don't want to keep moving. I really despise moving and having to start all over. Sometimes it's necessary, but it's a necessary evil, but it's still like, God, just want to get established and just be able to live and not worry about enrolling in new things and figuring out the new layout and everything that comes with it. Mm-hmm. I have to call you a little wonder. Yep. This is where we're at, guys. Our Madam Plague Dr. Ghost has been finished, and now I'm just doing the accessories. And I want to say I can appreciate moving. It gave me a better understanding of the country as a whole, because a lot of people in my country barely like get around. Oh, thank you guys. Barely even get around our own, like their own state, let alone going to a different state. So I guess that was cool. I can say I've been to more places than most people, but at the same time, it's like it was at the cost of literally everything. All social relationships, building up myself in school, figuring out, the place I was living in. I had to always relearn. So I've never really gotten attached to anywhere. I don't really know how to get around without landmarks, because I just never bothered. This is like, why memorize road names and street names and all that crap when it's just not gonna serve me well later on? Just go with landmarks, because usually it's like go to the 7-Eleven on this, like go to 7-Eleven and turn down here and then go down this way and you'll see this store, and it's like, okay, that I can work with. There really isn't one that you can legally obtain. And I know that just from watching a bunch of true crime documentaries. I think my favorite true crime that I ever watched did have to do with poison. It was this woman and her mother. They were trying to poison, I think, her stepfather. And they were buying all this shit. And they were trying to poison him and make it look like it was natural causes or something like that. My favorite part was they bought freaking foxglove seeds. For those of you who don't know, foxglove is a very poisonous plant. I believe it's the blooms are very poisonous. And this is all just for information. This is going to be found on Wikipedia. So I'm just regurgitating. But they, instead of, and again, this is information you can find on Wikipedia. They they ground up the seeds and they put it in a drink or something. And it's like, and he got sick, obviously, because you're going to get sick eating crushed up seeds. It's not good for you. But they were like, oh, the foxglove should work. And then they were surprised when it didn't. And it's like, well, no shit, it didn't work. It's not the seeds that are the poisonous part. I was just so dumbfounded. I was just like, really? You thought the seed part was the poisonous part? But again, this is an easy Google search. Like, look up poisonous plants, and that's what comes up. There's also one called belladonna. And again, I did this for research. I did botany in college, so I had to look up this shit at times because we did have carnivorous and venomous plants in our greenhouse. So we had to do all sorts of research. Yeah, see, and again, belladonna, it was like, the plant itself is not poisonous. I think you have to like grind it up or something. People used it in a serum. It's called belladonna because it's like beautiful woman. That's what it means, I think. Because women would use it in their eyes. They would use it as eye drops to make their eyes bigger because that was apparently attractive. And then somehow they found out that it has poisonous side effects. I don't know how that was figured out, but somebody somewhere figured out it's poisonous, and it was a very popular poison in Italy. No, I don't know like the effective rates or anything, so I'm useless on that. I just know what they do. Yes, I do have my spooky mic again. Not sure. Yeah, I just know random facts again because I took a lot of plant biology. See, when I majored in biology, I didn't think I would be doing that much plant biology. Well, I did a lot of plant biology. I'm not going to be held liable for any of this. Like I said, this is all just Google's. This is all shit you can just find on Google. And since it is spooky season, we talk about this stuff. Yeah, I was just thinking about like, what other weird, like, true crime have I heard? Well, there was this woman in Italy who was a fortune teller, and I can't remember what she did. True. I can't remember what exactly she did, but she had these clients that she would see, and then she would them. Here's where it gets really kind of disturbing. She would take the corpses and boil them down and turn them into sweets and candles. And she would regularly feed them to other people. And when I say sweets, I'm like, she would boil them down to the fat. She would boil down human fat, render it, and then put it in like cakes and cookies and stuff and feed it to other people. Which, nasty AF. Like, nasty to the 10th degree. I like true crime, but ew, that's gross. Yeah. Oh, just ignore him, Wolf. It's election season here in the US. If he ends up in the news, it's only because he didn't succeed. And then again, I was asked a question, I used the knowledge I have, and I actually don't know if any of those are viable poisons anymore. I just know based on the previous experience with true crime and botany. Yeah, that one was absolutely gross. Unfortunately, yeah. But I don't talk politics here. I don't like to. It just depresses everybody. And I'd rather talk about other things. Like how adorable this has turned out. I think a lot of people like true crime. Yeah. I think that is a very safe assumption to make, Wolf. Thank you, right? Most precious little plague Dr. Ghost. And I'm pretty content with just the background being white. Makes everything pop. I like this one. There wasn't a lot of little details I had to worry about. Well, if you still want it, let me know. If not, that's all right. If you want some really good true crime, Ash, I don't know if you watch ID, or if you have streaming services. If you have Hulu, there's one series I really like. It's called Deadly Women. It breaks down all these female killers, I guess. I won't say serial killers, but because a lot of them only like killed one, maybe two people. Some of them killed more than that, but most of them only killed one or two. Hi, Mike. Oh, I love crocheting. I should buy a crochet kit. But anyway, the true crime show is called Deadly Women. It focuses on female killers throughout the ages. I mean, it's not even just modern. They go all the way back to like the 1800s and beyond, like further than that. It's really cool. It's really fascinating. And a lot of it's broken down by an FBI behavior analyst. So if you've ever watched Criminal Minds, those are real people. That's a real position in the FBI. Her name is Candace DeLong. She was in the FBI for like 30 plus years, and she breaks down like the why and the how and like everything. It's really good, very educational. So Ash, it's on a couple of different ones, primarily Hulu and Discovery Plus. So if you have Hulu, it should be there, and if you have Discovery Plus, it definitely is there. Hi, Sam. We're talking about true crime. And I'm recommending a show for everybody because it's a highly educational show. It's called Deadly Women. And it even goes into like some of the history of like certain laws and things. Like, it goes into like talking about battered women syndrome and self-defense and a bunch of other ones that we now are familiar with and we know, but back then it wasn't a thing. So these women that probably would have gotten off or gotten lighter sentences in our modern day didn't. And it's really fascinating to see like the progression of laws, and how how having them now impacts us better than before. If you just have cable and if you have like ID, it's on there a lot. Chef Ramsay just lit his restaurant on fire. See if I can find it. Sounds amazing. It is honestly my favorite. Um, I've watched like there's like 14 or more seasons of it. One of my favorite episodes. If any of you have watched the film Chicago with Renee Zellweger and Catherine Zeta-Jones, it's based on a real crime that happened. Like everything that happened to Roxy basically is like beat for beat what happened to this other woman who was in Chicago. She married young, had like 3 children, left her husband to go to Chicago. She went to Chicago. She kind of, partied, as one does in the 20s. At least in the 20s here. And then she got married to a mechanic. That didn't like stop her from, still seeing others. She ended up one of her lovers because he lied to her about something. She went to jail, and she became kind of famous for it. And then when they were trying to say, she was going to die, she's like, "Oh no, you can't. I'm pregnant." And then she got off. And I was sitting there for the first time I ever saw it. I'm like, that sounds awfully familiar. And then the FBI agent I mentioned comes on, and she's like, if this sounds familiar to anybody, that's because it is the story of Roxy Hart in the movie Chicago. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know that was based on a true story. Ooh, that sucks. But anyway, Chicago is also, funnily enough, one of my favorite movies. And I love it because, so the original intent of the screenwriter, because it was a play first before it was a movie, was to show how I guess muddled crime stories can become in the media, how the focus can shift from the victim to the perpetrator, how the perpetrator gets more sensational than the victim. And what's funny is as you're watching the movie, they do a very good job of it. You become so engrossed in Roxy and also Velma's story and the story of the other women that you, like, when they get to the trial of Roxy Hart, you forget, oh yeah. And I mean, it's literally like, I always have this moment, even when I've watched it years later, I always think, oh yeah, she shot a guy. Oh yeah, she actually shot a guy and killed him because he lied about being married. But she was also married. Like, you forget that she actually did this thing. Like, they do such a great job of garnering sympathy for the perpetrator that you forget that there was a victim in all this, and that the victim really was a victim, and you're just sitting there like, oh shit, right, she actually did commit the crime, and here we are hoping she gets off for it, even though we know the extenuating circumstances. It's like, it doesn't always mean that they should get off. She just shot him because she was mad at him. She didn't shoot him for any other reason, but they painted the story of they both reached for the gun and all this, and you just kind of fall into it, and you're like, well, I'll be damned. The commentary is true. Ooh, that sucks. if you want to rid yourself of your little visitors from beyond, sage. You have to burn sage and do like a trail through your whole house, like kind of like a protective circle, and every so often say like spirits be gone or something like that. And then I always, when I would do it, I would start at my front door and work my way around, because then by the time you get back to your front door, you open the door and let out the smoke, and then you just kind of say something about it, and then you close the door and everything's good. That's what I do anyway. I don't know if it works for you. I don't know if that's something you do, but that's what it says worked for me in the past. Anyway, back to the Chicago and the true crime thing. It's like, how many, and this is true, it's like, look at the Dahmer show that was on Netflix that garnered so much controversy because people were like, this is sensationalizing Dahmer again. And people are like, oh no, we watched the victim. It's like, well, can you name any of the victims, or can you just name Dahmer? I was like, yeah, that's true. We sensationalize more the perpetrator than the victims. Yes, we know some of the names connected, but unless we're like actively involved in it, we just know that Dahmer killed like 20 some odd people, or that Manson had, and the only reason we know Sharon Tate's name is because she was a freaking celebrity. Oh, who's the other one that Zac Efron played? See, I'm a terrible American. I can't remember all my serial killers. Bundy. That was it, Bundy. Bundy killed like 30 some odd people, mostly women. It's like, we don't remember all the women's names, but we remember his name. Fair enough. Dude, not cool. Unless it was your sister. I don't know. That's just like, that you start looking for any explanation except for the obvious one, because the obvious one is scarier than anything else. But right. But then you have some crimes where like the name of the person stands out too. It's like, if you're American, you've heard of Scott Peterson and Lacey Peterson. Lacey Peterson was the victim, and so was her unborn son Connor. But it's like, some of them, you know more about the victim than you do the killer. So it's just like, it depends, I guess, on the angle the media wants to take. But most of the time, especially if it's a serial killer, we know the serial killer's name more than we do know the victims' names. But if it's like just an individual, like just one person who killed one other person, we pretty much know the name of both. But the bigger it gets, the less we focus on the victims, and the more we focus on the person doing it. Nice. Just so you know, your autocorrect or whatever is changing ghosts to goats. So it's like you have talking goats. Great. Oh my god, Mike. That's good. Oh, don't make me laugh too hard. I'm still recovering. No, you're good, you're good. I just wanted to point it out in case, like, you weren't aware. No food for them. I imagine it's very, like, just from what I've seen, it might be a very perilous thing to leave out anything food-wise in Australia. Don't kill her. You guys are great. I don't know, Wolf. Is it dangerous to leave like out your garbage and stuff in Australia just because of all the critters that could come? I mean, in the U.S., there's like, depending on where you live, there's the same danger of attracting weird ass animals. Like what? Out here we have deer and coyotes and cougars. The animal, not the person. Probably have the person too, but more so the animal. No bears out here, but I know another place I live, we had raccoons and foxes and stuff like that, and deer. In Texas, we had armadillos, which are bad because they carry leprosy. Oh, that's sweet. That's very sweet. Am I out of tea? Yeah, birds and rodents, yeah. I think the armadillo was the weirdest animal we've ever attracted, and that was because we had a dead bird buried in our garden, and it came and dug it up and ate it. But you don't want to touch an armadillo because you get leprosy. Armadillos are weird ass animals. Like, people talk about the platypus being weird. Armadillos are fucking weird because they can get pregnant and stay pregnant. They can choose to give when they want to give birth, or if they want to give birth. They're also the ones that roll up into the ball. They have the armored plating on their outside, and they roll up to hide their bellies. And they are like the weirdest little fucking animals. There's a Pokemon based on them, but the Pokemon is like 100 times cuter. I'm just thinking about it now. I mean, these fuckers are big. Like, looking at it straight on, it was like that big. And that was just like the what we could see. And then it's got a long ass nose like an anteater, and it has big like claws like the, oh god. It was the weirdest animal I'd ever seen in real life. It wasn't like in the zoo or anything. It was in our garden. It was so strange. And I still, to this day, remember, because it was my siblings and I. We were home alone for like a couple hours because my mom had to go do something. And all of a sudden we hear this like sound. And we were like, what the hell is that? And it was just, we were searching through our whole house trying to find it. We thought our dog had gotten into something. And then I noticed when we got to the front door, it was louder. And I'm like, what is it? And I turned on the front porch because we had to keep the porch light off because it would attract bats and stuff. So I turned on the front. Texas is weird, by the way. Texas is the Australia of the U.S. and has all sorts of weird ass animals that want to kill you, in case you didn't know. Anyway, I turned on the porch light, and then there's this armadillo, and I'm like, where did this come from? I didn't know we had any here in this part of Texas. And I wish we'd had cameras back then. I would have taken all sorts of pictures, but unfortunately we didn't have cameras back then. Well, we did have cameras, but we didn't have camera phones. And I did not have a camera at the time. My mom did, and I wasn't allowed to use it. So we didn't get any pictures of the armadillo. But vivid memory for all involved. You don't have raccoons? Holy shit, I think, yeah, no, raccoons are a U.S. thing. Sand shrew is adorable. Yep, that was it. Sand shrew. Yeah, they're a million times cuter than actual armadillos. Actual armadillos look like naked mole rats with armor. And naked mole rats aren't as cute as they put it in Kim Possible either. That was disappointing. We went to a zoo in Texas and saw naked mole rats, and they are the ugliest little creatures. And I'm like, they made Rufus so fucking cute. Like, a naked mole rat is a hard sell on it as an animal anyway, even in animation. But they definitely made a naked mole rat a way cuter animal in that show than it really was. Nice. I have not touched my Pokemon Go for months. I don't know if I feel like doing it now anyway. Okay, so just so you guys know, my next coloring endeavor is going to be these flamingos, and I'm gonna make them kind of Frankenstein-y. I'm gonna do different pinks. You really did, I think, all hair. Yeah, hairless cats, hairless guinea pigs, naked mole rats, naked mice, like all of those. There's just something so inherently wrong with that. And I'm only gonna do the Frankenstein thing because I have like 7 or 8 different shades of pink. So I think it'd be really cool to do different shades of pink for the flamingo. And since it looks like the second head is attached on anyway, I think it makes sense. And the cool, like, if you don't know about flamingos, just general aside, the reason flamingos are pink are because they eat krill. They're born gray. They eat krill and become pink. Which is, I always found it interesting. 2 heads. That's what I thought. You guys read the book about, read Frankenstein, the book? No. So I did. I've read it twice, at least. It is so different than what they put in the movies. Obviously Frankenstein is about the original story of Frankenstein. It's not what you see in the movies. It's not a crazy lab scientist who's trying to make life and all this. It was a bored college student who was studying to be a doctor who got the idea that maybe he could create life. That's not even the biggest part of the whole freaking book. You read about him, like, meticulously, digging up these people and taking this body part and that body part and being selected because he wants it to look good when he's done. And he succeeds in making the monster. It's not even really a monster. It's just a creature that's technically human. But he creates it, but he never says how. Like, there's some implication maybe that electricity was part of it because of Mary Shelley learning about how the electricity made frog legs jump and shit when the frog was dead. But the actual book doesn't go into it. It's not a big, throw the switches and shit like that. No, he's in his dorm room. He has this creature all laid out. he talks about he does something, doesn't even specify what he did, and all of a sudden the creature opens his eyes and it freaks him out because he didn't think it would work, and he faints. He wakes up the next morning and it's gone. And it's like, oh, yeah, that sounds like a typical college student. So it's not even, and then it drags on, like, nothing gets good until, like, the last 100 so pages. Because, like, you have a lot of exposition, you have a lot of him talking, and, you know, basically trying to psych himself out that he didn't actually create this creature. And then I say the last 100 pages or so, because it's not a very long book. But, you know, once the creature is out and loose, it starts a murdering spree, but not until after it's learned how to communicate. So what it does, so the scene where you see, like in the Frankenstein movie, where you see him talking to the little girl or whatever, is supposed to be, like somewhat like what's in the book. But in the book, he, you know, after escaping Victor's, he stumbles into the forest and he finds this old cottage, and and the cottage has a family, husband, wife, kids, aged blind father-in-law. The creature spends his time watching the family and observing them and learning from them, and eventually he learns how to speak, and he decides to practice his speech on the blind father-in-law. So he invites, like, he goes over and he talks with him, and it's apparently a very pleasant conversation until the family returns and they see who is talking to him, and then, you know, they freak out and he runs away. And then and he realized, like, he has a couple more interactions, I think, where it ends that way, where people are, like, interested in talking to him until they see him and then they freak out. And then he realizes he has no true place in polite society. And I can't remember if he starts murdering then, or if he starts murdering after Victor decides to not make him a partner. The creature asks Frankenstein to build him a, because Mary Shelley was a very dark person, very goth. But anyway, again, I can't remember exactly if the creature started murdering then and then stopped because he demanded Victor make him a partner, or if he demanded Victor make him a partner and then Victor destroyed it and then he went on his murdering spree. I can't remember. But then then the creature starts murdering. First it starts with Victor's best friend in school, possible gay love interest, because of some passage. Like, you read it and you're like, you don't talk about your future wife nearly as nice. Well, about the same, actually. So maybe bisexual Victor Frankenstein? Anyway. Starts with a best friend. Like, childhood best friend in college. Starts there. Murders a maid. Murders, I think, Victor's little brother or sister. Little sibling. Murders a few other people here and there, but mostly it starts to go, like, towards Victor, before culminating in the death of his wife, Elizabeth, at the end of the novel. Well, near the end of the novel. And then, it ends with Victor. He's been telling this whole story to the captain of this ice boat expedition in Antarctica, trying to get away from the creature, like, to lure the creature away from polite society, and the creature finds him. I think kills him. I can't remember. But it's very different from what the movie is. Ironically, Young Frankenstein, the movie with Gene Wilder, is probably closer to the truth. It's probably closer to, like, the true spirit of the story than the one we're all familiar with. Brothers Grimm. I know, right? Originally, Frankenstein doesn't start off that bad. Like, it's him telling this story of why he's on this expedition, and it starts with talking about his childhood, how he had a lovely childhood with his mother and father. Then they adopted this little girl named Elizabeth. Bromance a little too strong. A wee bit. I mean, you read it and you're just like, it's one of those fatal flaws, I think, of women writing male characters. Little too much attention to detail for them. Like, it's kind of like in Harry Potter, where people like, Harry, we don't notice our enemies, like how their hair looks and shit. It's like, yeah, that's true, but a woman would, like, most women would notice those details. I don't know a lot of men that would notice those specific details. So I don't know. It might be one of those fatal flaws of women writing male characters. It's like we write it through the female gaze a little bit, and then it comes across a little too strong on the romance side. But anyway, it starts off pretty good, just talking about how his dad was a doctor, they traveled, and they met Elizabeth's family, and the family died, and they took Elizabeth in and adopted her, and Victor's mother always wanted them to get married because, you know, they weren't siblings. They were raising Elizabeth as their ward, which was a thing that was done. And it was talking about how he wanted to become a doctor like his father and how he had all these accomplishments. It started off very boring. And even after the monster came in, it got boring. Shit didn't get interesting until the monster started murdering. And again, the name, like, the creature's name is not Frankenstein. It's the creature. They call it the creature throughout the whole story. It doesn't have a name. It's just called the creature. And then you have Victor. And sometimes you just kind of hit him in the head. I'm like, I get your logic as to why you decided not to build the creature a partner, but at the same time, it's like, you could have prevented a lot of this if A, you hadn't done this in the first place, and B, you kind of gave into its demands a little bit. Because it was clearly hell-bent on getting revenge on you for what you did to it. So, yeah. Victor handled the situation so poorly. It was one of those. I remember reading it in high school, and I was just like, really? Then I read it again in college, just for the fun of it, and I was just like, no, this is just as dumb as the last time. It's just as dumb as the last time when I read it. But yeah, like, it's the movies are way more interesting. Even freaking Van Helsing movie with Hugh Jackman is a way more interesting take on the Frankenstein story than the book. There's a lot of movies. Yeah, there's no Bride of Frankenstein, by the way. That was completely invented for the movies. There was no Bride of Frankenstein monster at all. It got 86'd halfway through being created in the story, so yeah. And they never specify. I don't think Victor ever specified if it was female or male. No, he did specify it was female, because this creature specifically asked for a female companion because he wanted it to like Adam Eve shit. Like, there was a lot of biblical shit in this too. But look-wise, like, they never really specified how the creature's partner was gonna look. It's very odd. Love that movie, Van Helsing. Yeah, it's on Netflix right now. I watched it the other day, and it is so a little bit laughable. It's just so campy in the best way possible. I absolutely adore the movie. I'm no criticism on it, like, from a hate point. It's just like, you know, the CGI is pretty bad now. It was really cool back then. Now it's kind of lame. Especially the mirror effect when they're going through the door. And the brides of Dracula and Dracula are so over the top in their mannerisms. It's comical. It really is. You watched it yesterday? Nice. But it was I was just like, you know, this is definitely an homage, in a way, to the B-rated films, because some of the acting is just so over the top, and the dialogue is just so, ugh. And the plot is so kind of loosely there. And apparently it was supposed to be a launch for a whole series of movies and stuff, and I'm like, you know, they kind of swung a little high on that one, because they included so many monsters. They had Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, They had Dracula. They had the Wolfman. They had Frankenstein's monster. Like, where do you go from there? The Mummy? But we already have that movie. We didn't need another one. Bye, Mike. I love Sleepy Hollow and I love From Hell. Sleepy Hollow is so bloody. Like as far like in rankings from bloody, like from least to most bloody, Van Helsing is the least bloody, and Sleepy Hollow is the most bloody. From Hell is like in the middle there as far as bloody, because yeah, there's blood, but Sleepy Hollow is like over the top blood. Like, how many cans of tomato juice can we get away with before it becomes ridiculous? Kind of. That's how I see it. But I'm definitely gonna have to watch those movies. Don't watch them much with my daughter. She's not a big fan of those. Like, Van Helsing is... I was surprised. I let her watch a little bit, and then I finished the movie after she went to bed, and I'm like, this actually isn't bad for a little kid. Like, there's nothing really scary unless you're scared of the monsters. There's no over-the-top violence or gore or any of that, so I was like, as long as she watches it and she's not too scared, like, no problem with that. That being said, she will not watch Sleepy Hollow or From Hell. Nightmare Before Christmas, yes. She loves that one. Yeah. She watches Nightmare Before Christmas. And that would honestly freak me out. Like, that one freaked me out for a while. I was just like, this is weird. It's one of her favorite movies. And Coraline. She likes Coraline. I'm like, girl, you got some good taste in movies, but shit. Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy movies. I like fluff horror. Yeah, true. I like that too. I don't mind horror, but it has to have a good plot. Like, there has to be a reason for me to watch it other than the scares. Like, I don't watch anything just for the scares. That's just boring. Like, I love the movie Crimson Peak because it actually has a decent plot. Like, yeah, you can kind of see it coming a little bit, but at the same time, it's like, it's compelling enough, you watch it. Love Coraline. Strange. Yeah, but it's a Neil Gaiman one, so it's going to be a little weird. Everything he does is a little out there. He's kind of like Roald Dahl, as far as weird, like, as far as concepts being a little strange. Neil Gaiman and Roald Dahl are not similar person-wise. No, not at all. We won't even get into that right now because it's time to go. But I am saying, as far as concepts, as far as like imagination, Roald Dahl and Neil Gaiman are very similar because they both have kind of out there ideas for kids. But that's where we're stopping right now. Hate the Meg. The Meg was kind of lame. Nothing scares me in horror films because it's true. I actually predicted the end of a horror movie from watching the trailer. I think I've told you guys that story. It pissed off my soon-to-be ex-husband very much because I got it from the trailer. And it's like, it was an M. Night Shyamalan. Just pick the most unexpected part. Just pick the most unexpected twist you can think of, and it's probably right. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me. I really enjoyed chatting with you guys. Ash, so lovely to see you again. Mike, so wonderful for you to drop in. Jake, thank you for joining. Sam, hope you come back next week. Hope you all come back. Again, had so much fun. I hope you have a great night, a great week, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye, everybody.